Welcome back to the deep dive. It feels like we're just constantly wading through headlines, doesn't it?
It really does. Information overload is definitely a thing.
Yeah, news flashes by so fast, and figuring out what actually matters, what's genuinely shaking things, that's the hard part. You're probably trying to track market shifts, geopolitical moves, maybe even pop culture stuff.
Right.
And that's exactly why we do this deep dive. We've gone through the key global headlines from the last, say, 12 hours. That's Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. Our mission really is to cut through all that noise, pull out the crucial bits of info, and connect the dots for you, give you a clearer sense of what's driving events.
And it's fascinating, I think, not just seeing what's happening, but digging into why it matters, how seemingly separate events, link up. We'll be covering quite a bit today. Global markets, some geopolitical tensions, even a pretty big pop culture moment. It's all about building that bigger picture for you.
That sets things up perfectly. That interconnectedness is exactly what we want to explore. So let's kick off with some pretty significant economic news. The headline grabbing attention this morning: the U.S.-China tariff truce has been extended 90 days. Feels like a bit of a breather, maybe?
It does. A strategic pause, you could say.
Yeah. And the timing, right before we get key U.S. inflation data, and there's that planned Trump-Putin meeting about Ukraine. What does that timing suggest to you? How are Washington and Beijing playing this?
Well, the timing is definitely not accidental. Pausing right before the inflation numbers in that high-stakes meeting, it suggests both sides want a bit of economic calm to maybe facilitate other moves, diplomatic ones perhaps.
Yeah.
It hints that, maybe bigger discussions are happening behind the scenes. And this economic truce provides some space for that. And we're already seeing the market reaction, right? Look at Asia. Japan's Nikkei hit a record high.
A record high, wow.
Yeah.
Driven partly by tech stocks, sure, but also directly linked to this easing of trade tensions, plus a weaker yen helping their exports. So you see those ripples immediately.
Okay, so that's definitely positive. But I guess I wonder, is this just, a temporary sigh of relief, given all the other uncertainties out there? Or do you think it signals something more fundamental changing in trade relations? Because it's not just stocks. Oil prices also rose on this truce optimism.
Right.
Brent crude jumped, 0.4%? Seems like the oil market is reacting to the truce extension, maybe expectations of a Fed rate cut down the line, and honestly, maybe even some faint hope around Ukraine. It's like a mix of things.
It is a complex mix, yeah. And while there's optimism, you're right, the market's always cautious underneath, which actually brings up an interesting counterpoint. While the big U.S.-China tariff issue sees a pause, China just announced a preliminary anti-dumping duty on Canadian canola imports.
Oh, interesting. So not all tensions are easing then.
It's exactly. Beijing thinks Canadian firms are selling canola too cheaply in China, undercutting their own producers. So it shows that even with the big truce, there's still localized friction. This specific issue between Beijing and Ottawa highlights the global trade picture is, well, still pretty complicated. Patchy, maybe.
Yeah, definitely not a simple picture. And this complicated dance isn't just about tariffs on goods like canola, is it? It's also deep in the tech space. Which brings us to something intriguing from a crypto conference of all places. News suggesting NVIDIA AI chips might get a U.S. green light for China. Apparently, President Trump hinted that maybe scaled-down versions of these really powerful AI chips could be allowed. What's the significance of scaled-down versions specifically? Why not just keep the ban or allow full access?
That scaled-down part is absolutely key for you to grasp. See, the most powerful AI chips could potentially be used for military AI development. That's the dual-use concern. Allowing scaled-down versions. It signals the U.S. is trying to draw a very fine line. They're saying, okay, maybe trade for commercial AI stuff, data centers, consumer tech is all right, but they still want to restrict that absolute top-tier technology that could significantly boost military capabilities. It's a balancing act, really. Economic interest versus national security.
Yeah, very tricky balancing act, I imagine.
Definitely. And despite these glimmers of compromise or optimism, looking ahead, markets are still pretty tense waiting for that U.S. inflation data.
Right, that data point looms large.
It does. Currency markets are cautious, Bitcoin's down a bit, gold's recovered slightly. Traders are basically holding their breaths trying to figure out the Fed's next move. So yes, some optimism, but also a healthy dose of wait and see before those key numbers drop. Everyone's watching closely.
Feels like the whole financial world is holding its breath sometimes, doesn't it? Okay, so shifting gears a bit. While the economy navigates this tricky path, a lot of these market moves are, of course, tied into geopolitics. Let's turn there. Starting in Europe, we're seeing some strong diplomatic signals regarding Ukraine.
Yes.
EU leaders Back Ukraine's sovereignty, that was the headline. 26 European heads of state making it clear Ukrainians should decide their own future. That sounds like a pretty firm message, especially now.
It's very firm. And the timing, again, is crucial for you to note. We just talked about that upcoming Trump-Putin meeting focused on Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
So this EU declaration reinforces a united European stance just as those high-level talks are potentially happening. It's not just words. It shapes the diplomatic environment, shows solidarity.
Right. Setting the stage diplomatically. And speaking of positioning and signals, we also saw the announcement of scheduled Russia-Belarus military drills.
Hmm.
These are joint strategic exercises set for September 12th to 16th in Belarus.
And what's important there for you is how they're being framed. Officials are calling it a clear show of military coordination amid regional tensions. So it's more than just routine training. It's a signal reinforcing that strategic alliance between Moscow and Minsk. It definitely adds to the broader geopolitical picture in Eastern Europe, projecting strength in a, well, pretty tense region.
Projecting strength,
Yeah,
or maybe just posturing.
probably a bit of both, honestly. But the message itself, regardless of the exact mix, is pretty clear.
Okay, so we've hit the big economic moves, the geopolitical chessboard, but other things shape our world too, sometimes more immediately. Let's touch on a couple of those. Beyond the markets and diplomacy, we're seeing the harsh reality of environmental events. Turkey is fighting extensive wildfires in its northwest.
Yeah, I saw that in Senegal.
That's right. They've been burning for a second day now, forcing large-scale evacuations.
Yeah, and these events, they aren't just local tragedies anymore. What happens in Turkey with wildfires or floods elsewhere, it's part of this larger global pattern we're seeing. It pushes emergency services to the brink, forces governments to rethink things long term. And for you, the takeaway is the sheer economic and human cost. These are becoming central issues impacting everything from aid budgets to even migration patterns. The planet's sending some urgent signals.
A very sobering point.
Hmm.
And maybe to end on a slightly different kind of global event, one that's definitely capturing attention.
Okay.
Taylor Swift has announced a new album, her 12th studio album, apparently titled The Life of a Showgirl. And, well, the internet is buzzing, to say the least. Global fan base is very excited.
Ah, yes. And, it might seem totally separate from everything else we've discussed, but it's actually a fascinating example of something else. Like global digital influence, cultural economy. For you, think about how one artist can generate economic activity on a massive scale, merch, streams, tour buzz. It's huge. And it also shows this kind of cultural soft power, how shared experiences in global fandom can shape conversations worldwide, even when politics and economics dominate the headlines. It's still a really powerful force.
That's a great point. So, wow, quite the range we've covered today then.
Yeah.
From the intricacies of the U.S.-China trade dance and market reactions.
Right to the diplomatic signals in Europe and military drills.
Touching on the tough reality of environmental crises like the fires in Turkey.
And even landing on a massive global cultural moment like a Taylor Swift album launch.
It really shows how much is going on.
Exactly. And the real value, we hope, for you listening, isn't just hearing the headlines, but starting to see the threads connecting them, getting that more holistic view of what's happening. We really encourage you to keep thinking about how these different events might ripple out and influence each other in the next few days and weeks. That interconnectedness is really key.
It really is. As we've seen today, global stability seems to rest on this really delicate balance, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Economic pressures, geopolitical moves, but also these other forces like climate, like culture, intersecting in complex ways. So the question maybe to leave you with is, what does this ever-increasing interconnectedness mean for how you track and make sense of world events going forward? And how might these subtle links surprise us next?